episode number 2 of the Fat Guys Hike podcast. Today we're going to talk about the Prairie Gas House and Davis Trail Loop. It was located in the Tallgrass Prairie Reserve in Kansas, about an hour south of Topeka. So we got some interesting stories with that. Then I'm going to talk about a book I read this week. So that's going to be fun. And, we'll just see where it goes from there. All right, Mike. Actually, before we start, did you have a good Christmas?
I did, yeah. I just spent time with the family and just like everybody else, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Pretty cool. My best Christmas gift was a tin of popcorn and a toothbrush, so I'll take it. Yeah. Anyway, so what'd you think of the trail?
I liked it. I thought it was kind of easy. It's a good starting trail if you're just starting out. It's a good one to go on. It's not too challenging. Just as long as you bring some water and don't go in the wintertime, you're pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty cold when we started, but because you're out in the open, there's no trees really to speak of, and you're out in the prairie. It's a prairie reserve. It's 8.4 miles, the loop that we did. It only took us about 4 hours to do that, so
we actually went a little bit farther than 8.4 miles. I think it was 8.8.
Yeah, so we definitely could have been out there all day. Could have knocked out 20 miles if we really wanted to.
Yeah, we could have done they have a 16-mile loop. We could have done that, but
yeah,
that was less buffalo, so.
Yeah. Oh, well, so that was the kind of the highlight of the trip is there's buffalo. They have a buffalo herd there, and they're pretty docile,
Yeah, we had a few of them follow us for a little bit.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
They're pretty fun. Basically, they're cows that are a little crazy.
Yeah,
when it comes down to it. So
yeah,
that was awesome. I mean, the prairie was super pretty though.
Yeah, one thing that I didn't notice was any other animals out there. It was just buffalo.
Well, we saw some deer.
Well, you did.
Okay, well, I did.
Us with keen vision.
And there was probably birds. I just wasn't paying attention. And,
I guess.
Yeah,
I just didn't notice any other animals except for bison, buffalo. Bison.
Either one's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't super exciting.
Not really. It's a lot of the same, a lot of ups and downs. It is pretty comfortable to if you find a spot where there's not a lot of wind, just lay down in the grass and
just
daydream a little bit.
Just take a nap.
It's pretty nice.
Do some edibles. I'm joking. Don't do that. But yeah, that was a good trail.
I enjoyed it.
For the most part. Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing it again.
Yeah.
I think it'd be better in the summer maybe.
Definitely.
You get there real early in the morning. I think it would be really cool, just to see the sun glisten off the prairie. You can probably see it on our Instagram. We took a few pictures pretty early in the morning, kind of on the way there. We didn't get left as early as we wanted to. And the pictures I took from that when we stopped at this lookout spot.
Right off of what was it? Right off the highway.
Yeah, I don't remember what highway it was.
I-35.
Yeah, we didn't mean I accidentally missed my exit. We ended up driving 30 minutes out of the way.
Yeah.
But we got some good pictures out of it. But when we took that, it was earlier in the morning, and you could really see the sun reflecting off the grass. If you look on our Instagram, you can definitely tell what pictures we took from there. I think I posted 2 of them on Instagram I took from there.
I'll go ahead and post the ones that I have probably today and tomorrow until I do my stuff. But
yeah, but it's just a real pretty red. You know,
Kind of like a brown red.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially when you get to the buffalo enclosures that they have to keep the buffalo from going anywhere. Did you happen to notice those?
Yeah, yeah.
Big brown fences.
Yeah, yeah. There are little corrals there,
Yeah.
and yeah. But if you look at the pictures I took later in the day, they're kind of dull looking. Like when the sun's directly above you, that prairie grass goes from red to like gray.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Which I think is because it's winter time. You know, it's not super alive at the moment, but yeah. That's about it. That's all I got to say about that trail.
I mean,
you're not allowed to camp on it.
Yeah, you're not allowed to camp on it. Whatever you do on it has to be done in a day.
You're not allowed to have.
And you're not allowed to be out there after I think it was like 10 or 8.
Yeah, yeah. They don't want you out there trying to buffalo tip. So you're not allowed to use. I brought my drone. I thought, I could get some cool shots with the drone.
They don't even allow drones out there.
No drones
allowed. They don't
allowed.
allow animals.
Yeah.
No pets. No, it's just you and that's it.
You're not supposed to get within a football field of the buffalo.
Yeah.
Which I find to be kind of... Okay, we definitely violated that rule. We probably got within 50 feet.
Yeah.
Closer.
I'd say 50 feet.
Yeah, so...
of a couple of them.
Yeah, so good trail. Might go back someday.
I enjoyed it. I think once we get a bit faster.
There's also like we didn't look at it. We probably should have while we were there, but it also had like a old schoolhouse, like kind of a historic thing to look at.
Yeah, when we walked out to the north.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could definitely do like tours and stuff there. They had a facility there. They had like a little gift shop and stuff. You know, wasn't open when we were there because of exterior forces from China. And yeah, so that's about it. Okay, so moving on, I read a book over the last week. It's called Empire of the Summer Moon. I first heard about the book. The author was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I'm a podcast junkie, so I have to listen to that one. So I actually read the book, and I actually don't have the book with me. I gave it to my dad for Christmas because I liked it so much, and I thought he would like it. So Empire of the Summer Moon, Quanah Parker and the Rise and Fall of the Comanches, the most powerful Indian tribe in American history. I'm just going to kind of read like the synopsis of it real fast. In the tradition of the Bury My Heart and I can't read aloud. In the tradition of Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, a stunning, vivid historical account of the 40-year battle between Comanche Indians and the white settlers for control of the American West, centering on Quanah, the greatest Comanche chief of them all. S.C. Gwynne, Empire of the Summer's Moon, spans two astonishing stories. The first traces the rise and fall of the Comanches, the most powerful Indian tribe in American history. The second entails one of the most remarkable narratives ever to come out of the Old West, the epic saga of the pioneer woman Cynthia Ann Parker and her mixed-blood son, Quanah, who became the last and greatest chief of the Comanches. Although readers may be more familiar with the tribal names Apache and Sioux, it was in fact the legendary fighting ability of the Comanches that determined just how and when the American West was opened up. Comanche boys became adept bareback riders by age of 6. Full Comanche braves were considered the best horsemen who ever rode. They were so masterful at war and so skillful with their arrows and lances that they stopped the northern drive of colonial Spain from Mexico and halted the French expansion westward from Louisiana. White settlers arrived in Texas from the eastern United States were surprised to find that the frontier being rolled backward by Comanches incensed by the invasion of their tribal lands. So effective were the Comanches that they forced the creation of the Texas Rangers, an account for the advent of the new weapons specifically designed to fight them, the 6-gun. The war with the Comanches lasted 4 decades, in effect holding up the development of the new American nation. Gwynne's exhilarating account delivers a sweeping narrative that encompasses Spanish colonialism, the Civil War, the destruction of the buffalo herds, and the arrival of the railroads. A historical feast for anyone interested in how the United States came into being. Against this backdrop, Gwynne presents the compelling drama of Cynthia Ann Parker, a lovely 9-year-old girl with cornflower blue eyes who was kidnapped by the Comanches from the far Texas frontier in 1836. She grew to love her captors and became infamous as the White Squaw, who refused to return until the tragic capture of the Texas Rangers in 1860. More famous still was her son, Quanah, a warrior who was never defeated and whose guerrilla wars in Texas Panhandle made him a legend. S.C. Gwynne's account of those events is meticulously researched, intellectually provocative, and above all, thrillingly told. Empire of the Summer Moon announces him as a major new writer of the American history. I apologize for my inability to read out loud. I basically didn't learn how to read until I was 23, which is how old I am now. So
So I got a question for you.
go for it.
What you just read sparked a question in my head. You think that 40-year span where they stopped expansion in North America, you think if that hadn't have happened, that we would be better advanced technologically today?
You mean if like the Comanches would have just rolled over?
Yeah.
If
we had been able to settle
no,
and take over all of North America like we have, minus Canada,
like immediately without having to fight the Comanches.
For 40 years, yeah.
No, because the Comanches basically forced the innovation of the 6-shooter, the revolver, and then later on the Henry, the lever action rifle. If those things weren't invented, there would probably be a Comanche nation still around.
Really?
Yes, because they were so dominant. Like, they could fire like 10 shots with their bow and arrow, before we could reload our guns. And they were amazing on horseback. They did things on horseback that, for some reason, white people hadn't figured out, which is pretty crazy to think about because horses weren't native to the Americas. They didn't come until the Spanish settlers brought them. The Comanches just found the horses, you know.
The Comanche fight them.
They learned from the Spanish like how to take care of horses and how to breed them.
Yeah.
But then like they just took it to the whole new level. One of the things they would do is they found this way of falling to the side of the horse, so the horse is in between them and their enemy. So the horse acts like a shield, and they can shoot arrows from that position at whoever's shooting at them, and they could do it at a full sprint. They would, at the age of like 8, they would take their young boys, and they would practice like picking up a hat off the ground from horseback and doing stuff like that. Stuff the white settlers never even thought to do. They mostly just fought on the ground. Like they would ride to them and then get off their horse and start fighting, which is really stupid. The Comanches, in a lot of ways, most resemble the Mongols. So if you've studied the Mongols at all, the largest empire ever, everything they did was on horseback.
Yeah.
They didn't even really have a city to call their capital. They ended up setting up their capital in China afterwards, after they conquered everything. But they were very decentralized, like the Comanches. The Comanches didn't have like one leader.
They were like just a group of hunter-gatherers, weren't they?
Pretty much,
They just kept moving around the plains.
Yeah. Well, what would happen is the government. This is also a good story about how stupid governments are, and because the government in Washington, they would like, oh no, we're causing all the trouble with the Comanches. We'll just sign a treaty with them. And so they would fight a tribe of Comanches, and they would defeat them, and then the leader of that tribe would sign a peace treaty. Well, there was hundreds of Comanche tribes, and so the white people were like, well, he speaks for all Comanches, but no, he spoke for like 50 Comanches. And so they'd be
Wow.
like, we're signing a peace treaty, and then like next week they're just getting
They get
invaded
attacked by the one 3 miles to the left.
right, yeah. There is no centralization, which is why they never really came to terms. They started to become centralized towards the end when they had to.
They had to all band together.
Yeah, because they were starting to lose because they're like, oh crap, these guys with 6-shooters, they can shoot just as fast, with that as we can with their arrows. But in a lot of ways, they kind of refused to advance, which is why they eventually fell. Like they pretty much refused to learn how to smith guns, so they would steal guns from white people, but they had no way of fixing them
because they didn't know how to fix them. They didn't know how to maintain them.
Yeah, so they would just be like, "Oh, we'll just use our arrows once it breaks," And a lot of times with these peace treaties, part of the deal would be the Comanches would get their guns all fixed by the white people. That was part of their bargain. So they just never learned how to fix it. And in fact, this book talks about several different tribes besides the Comanches, like the Pueblos and the Apaches and different ones. And most Indian tribes kind of like refuse to ride horses. Yeah, it's pretty.
Except for the Comanches.
Like at the beginning, the Apaches kind of did, and they caused some trouble. But like at first, when they got horses, they just used them as meat. They would just breed them to eat, and they looked at anything the white people did as like, that's what white people do. We aren't going to do that. And so when a tribe of Native Americans finally figures out, like, hey man, if you learn how to ride horses good, you have a lot of horses, you can like kick some serious ass.
Yeah.
And so they took off with that. But they were so powerful at a time. If they would have came together, they could have easily set a border and traded with the whites and set up their own country, because we couldn't have done anything about it.
Well, they didn't want to advance.
Well, they refused to build things. Like they didn't. Like how colonization works is you go in, you build a fort, and you hold that fort.
And then you slowly expand from there.
You slowly expand. But they didn't do that. They just raided people and took all their stuff. And one crazy thing about it is they were unbelievably brutal.
Probably.
It's I don't want to be like stereotypical. Like I don't think it's a stereotype, but like the typical Comanche warrior, was a rapist and brutalized anyone that wasn't like part of their tribe.
And they're basically like Vikings.
In a lot of ways, yeah. And I kind of, it is so dark, some of the stuff in the book. Like it doesn't hold back at all. Like some of the stuff they would do. The book starts out at the very beginning, detailing the story. I don't remember the exact details, but how they would hold like the mother down and rape their daughters and stuff like that, and then kill them and do all sorts of horrible stuff to people. And what's crazy about the Comanches is they had no word in their language for surrender, so they always just fought to the death. And that's what they did when they were fighting white people, when they were fighting other tribes. Like that's how they thought about things. You fight until you die.
Yeah.
And
they must have made it a lot.
Well, what's crazy is they would capture white children and women solely because they were killing themselves off so fast they couldn't reproduce fast enough. So they would capture all the women and just impregnate them, just to keep their population up. And that's how they kept their numbers up.
And I've never heard of that happening.
Yes.
At any other time in history.
I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I mean, the cons.
Did the cons do that too?
Oh, dude. 10% of the people in Asia are directly descended from Genghis Khan.
Because he got around a lot.
He just raped so many people.
Jeez.
Like, he killed so many people,
You know how
dude.
many people are in Asia?
There's a lot of people. Well,
probably like 4 billion.
He killed so many people in Asia. He killed like, I don't know. I think it was like, I don't know. It was like 10% of the world at the time. He killed so many people that like the carbon footprint, like you were looking at the layers, like, oh, it's not as much carbon right here. Genghis Khan killed everyone. like it was just so incredible. Yeah, so it was just so unbelievably brutal about everything, and it's not like the different. It's not like the white people didn't do the same thing to them in retaliation. They definitely did. The thing is with that is the Indians never wrote anything down, and the white people did, and white people aren't going to write about them raping and killing squaws.
They're going to write it in view of their own cause.
Right? Yeah. They're if they go in and slaughter a village of women and children, old men, they're going to say they slaughtered 100 warriors. They're not going to say,
or they might just skip over the slaughtering and say, "Oh, we saved this village,"
or whatever. Yeah. Which is kind of the dark truth of the time. That's kind of how everything worked. The victors.
That's still how things work.
Yeah. Well, the thing is now is like there isn't any cultures.
Definitely harder to do.
Everything's recorded now. For the most part. Now you can try and squash that record, but it's still being recorded. Every culture on Earth can write now. Every culture has cell phones, can record things, which I think is a good thing. Although it does present new problems. But no, I think it was just very unbelievable. One thing about it, I think is interesting. When they talk about Cynthia Ann Parker, who was kidnapped when she was 9, and then the thing with her is she was captured back by the whites at 13, I think. She may have been older. She like didn't want to go back, or she wanted to stay with the Indians. She like had completely forgot how to speak English.
In 4 years?
Yeah, it was. I don't know.
Do you think if you stopped speaking Mandarin for a year, you would forget how to speak it?
Probably, but I can't really speak Mandarin now, so.
Well,
I can speak a little bit of Mandarin, but if I quit speaking English for 4 years,
that's a better thing.
I'd probably. I don't know.
And
that would be so difficult.
You've been using English a lot longer than she had. She was only 9.
It's true, but still, at 9 years old, I mean, you pretty much just got talking down at that point. Like, my sister's 9, dude. She has no trouble talking.
So you just, I don't know. I mean, it's not really something we can find out. So
yeah, I mean, I'll just move to Mexico and refuse to speak English. People do that. Learn a language.
That's actually the best way to learn a language.
Yeah.
I think is to actually, me and my grandmother were having a conversation about this 2 nights ago. That the best way to learn a language is to move to that country and live there for a few years.
Yeah,
it's the best way to learn a language.
Definitely.
You're not going to learn the language better through Rosetta Stone or an audio book.
And you'll learn how to speak it correctly.
Learning
from native speakers.
More importantly, you're going to learn the mannerisms and hand movements.
And you're kind of be forced to learn it.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to, like we were talking about, I'm trying to learn Mandarin now, and after like 30 or 40 minutes of like going through the programs, I'm like, I'm done with this. Like, if I was stuck in China, I would have like no choice.
You wouldn't be able to go. I'm done with this.
Yeah.
But you couldn't get mad either, because some dude could just be like talking to you all quiet and stuff, just saying, "Hey, do you want a burrito or something, or some fish?" And
yeah.
You don't know what he's saying, but you can't get mad at him for offering you something.
Yeah.
So, no, that's the best way to learn a language. And I do have another question about that book.
Yeah, go ahead.
What time period did it end on?
Like the
or like a
early,
year or something,
like,
1850s,
well,
60s.
it kind of goes up until Quanah dies. Quanah died in like 1911.
Really?
Yeah. Uh, Quanah was pretty amazing. So he was the son of Cynthia. Like she had like 3 or 4 kids with the Indian
Okay.
while she was captured, and so Quanah was half white and half Comanche, and like he was like all the like depictions of him. They said he was like extremely tall and extremely muscular,
Yeah.
and which Comanches weren't tall. You know, they're usually kind of short, stocky people.
Yeah.
So maybe that was kind of his Parker blood mixed in there. But he like rose up as one of the great chiefs, and like later in life, whenever he like went from just like slaughtering everyone, and then when he decided it's time to surrender, like he was a genuinely great leader. Uh, in like every sense, he kind of rose from nothing. Um, and whenever whenever they're like, okay, we can't win this war, he started making deals, and he pretty much saved his people from being completely wiped out. Um, when he moved them to the reservation, uh, he was the only one that was ever able to like successfully negotiate with like the government and like getting them stuff they need and
Yeah.
taking control of land. And he ended up making like a whole bunch of money. And he just, by the time he's dead, he was poor because he just gave it all away.
Okay.
Yeah. He was in the book. It contrasts him with Geronimo. Uh, Everyone's heard of Geronimo.
Yeah.
The thing with Geronimo is he really didn't do anything. He was just really good at marketing, and he got really rich, and he was like a celebrity, you know. But Quanah is different. One of the things at the end it says that Geronimo was buried on a street named after Quanah. I mean, no one cared about Geronimo. The Indians hated him, you know. But that's the one we hear about.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the one you hear about in all the Western movies with John Wayne. It's like Geronimo and all that stuff. You know,
yeah,
I've
no one's
actually
ever heard of Quanah,
I've never heard of Quanto.
or it's not Quanto, it's Quano.
Quano?
Quano.
I've never heard of Quano.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, he was.
Ever.
In fact, Teddy Roosevelt was like friends with him and stuff later in his
Really?
life. Yeah, and he spoke. He even spoke for like on Roosevelt's election campaign and stuff. And
Right.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, he was a pretty big deal. He's just a fascinating guy. Yeah. So it was a really good book. I definitely recommend it.
What time period did it start with? Like 1830s?
Like, well, it kind of starts like way back at the very beginning. Um,
1700s?
yeah. Well, like when the Spanish first came over, like it kind of talks about the Comanches before they had horses, and they were like unknown. They had like no history. They didn't really accomplish anything before they decided to ride horses.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They were just your normal Indians. They were brutal.
yeah, but they were even like,
They weren't brutal then?
well, they're brutal, but they were like picked on by all the other Indians. Like they were weak in a lot of ways.
Interesting.
They lived off of shrubs and like nuts and small game and stuff.
So
They didn't even hunt buffalo.
really?
Yeah.
So then once the whites came, or the Spaniards, I guess, and gave them horses, then their attitudes just changed to be these badasses?
Yeah, well, once they figured out that they could kick everyone's ass if they learned how to raise and ride horses, you know, and the other Indians for some reason didn't pick up on that until later. Yeah, they just dominated everyone. The thing is, like, before the white settlers came in Texas, the Spanish had tried to move in and they gave up. And then, like, in that little period before the whites came in, they just, like, slaughtered all the other, like, the Cheyennes and the Kansas tribes and all that stuff. Yeah, it was a good book. The crazy thing about it with the Spanish, um, with Texas. Like they gave up trying to take over Texas because the Comanches were just killing them. So what they did was they encouraged all these English settlers to move in, so they would have like a buffer between them and the Comanches.
Wow.
And
Kind of a shield.
the settlers didn't know what they were getting into, so they were just rolling in and setting up shop and just getting slaughtered. And yeah, and then it came, and then like it came out with the Texas Rangers, and they were like brutal. They fought like Comanches, and a lot of these guys were like they wore skins and stuff, like they were wild men.
I wonder where they came from.
They're just like random men that were
exceptionally gifted
and crazy
crazy
and wanted adventure. They're kind of nutty.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're probably guys that were too wild to actually serve in the military. They couldn't take orders, so they were just like these ragtag teams of wild men that would hunt the Comanches, and that's super fascinating.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Very different than Chuck Norris and the Walker Texas Rangers.
Yeah. Was there any record in the book of the Indians burying their enemies in the ground, just leaving their head above and letting them bake in the sun?
I didn't say anything like that. I kind of doubt the Indians would have done that.
I just saw it in a Western movie once.
Yeah, I've seen it in a few too. Yes, I kind of doubt they would have done that, at least very often, because it's a lot of work to bury someone up to their neck.
Maybe if they did something really horrible.
Maybe. Yeah, but I imagine most of the time they just scalp people and torture them like normal.
Yeah, what was their deal with scalps? Why did they want hair?
It was like a trophy.
I guess.
Look at all the scalps I have. And I know the whites started doing it too because they would like there was like a bounty on Indian scalps in some places.
Yeah.
So
I bet you there was guys that tried to pass off normal scalps as Indian scalps too. I bet you.
Why is this Indian blonde? What?
Oh, it's Wish.com.
Yes. I don't know, man.
So that definitely sounds like an intriguing book. The only book I'm reading right now is Jurassic Park.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jurassic Park, and then the second one. I'd never read them before, and I hear a lot of things that the book is so much better than the movies. So when I get that read, I'll mention it, bring it up.
Awesome.
It should be much better than the movie.
That's good. That's good. Well, I think I grew up and I always watched like old westerns, and it's very this
John Wayne, Clint Eastwood,
Gene Autry, Cheyenne. It's just stupid stuff. Gunsmoke, and their idea of Indians is so
warped,
incorrect, and like fairy taled.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason my dad always read the Louis L'Amour books.
So my dad.
He's read all of them. I remember one year I went to a garage sale, and this guy just had a tub full of Louis L'Amour books. Like he wrote like a ton of books, and I just bought the whole tub and gave it to my dad. And and so like I know his view of. I've always like been critical of those old westerns because I'm like, this isn't realistic at all. Like, no, like none of this is real. Yeah. And so I gave that to him. I didn't really tell him that it was really realistic because the book starts out just giving depictions of horror.
You didn't tell your dad that the Empire of the Rising Sun is realistic?
No, I just gave it to him.
He's probably gonna go into it thinking, "Huh, this is a weird Louis L'Amour book."
He's like, he probably won't even read it because of all the rape and stuff in it.
He's probably like, "Why is my son reading this?"
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
Yeah, it is. Another book I'm reading right now is, or that I want to read. I actually just ordered it off Amazon and it just arrived a couple days ago. From an author called Sapiens. It's called A Brief History of It's called A Brief History of Civilization.
Yeah, I think I've listened to the author of that.
And I was just flipping through the pages. And sorry to bring this up so suddenly. It just came to mind. But
That's fine.
I was just flipping through the pages, and I flipped to this random page towards the end of the book that talked about how much, like the how much.
Anyways, continue.
All right. So what I was talking about was I received this book from an author. His last name was Sapiens, called A Brief History of Civilization, and I was just flipping through it the other day because I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. And I flipped to this page, and there was a picture, and the caption under the picture. Oh, it's a picture of Cristiano Ronaldo, the famous football player, soccer player from Brazil, and or somewhere down there. I'm not necessarily sure it's Brazil, but anyway, it's talked about how much we've advanced as far as people knowing things and people getting influence for by everything now. You know, with Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything. You know, the caption talks about how, you know, with like the beauty standards of people. It talks about how, you know, back in the 70s, the 80s, before everybody was connected to everything, you know, the only standards of, you know, beauty you had were your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so and now with the advent of social media and everything for the past decade, 2 decades, it talks about how no wonder why so many people are unhappy because they have all these, you know, beautiful people flash in front of their eyes 24/7, and they're the most beautiful people on the planet from all over the world.
Yeah.
So I thought that just flipping to that brief page and reading a paragraph just got my brain really thinking.
I'm about to start reading a book called Calculating God by I can't think of the author. I've never read any book by the author before. I just heard someone recommend it, and it sounded good. But anyway, so I had a thought earlier this week. So, do you know how like artificial intelligence works? Like when they make AIs to play chess or
No,
do stuff.
not particularly.
So basically, how it works is you put the AI in a game, and you have like a whole bunch of different generations like go at once, and at first they just like make random moves, but then as it goes on, whatever generation does best moves forward, and then so that slowly the AI learns how to play the game. And the way you do it to speed it up is you introduce like random elements into the game, so that
That way it kind of learns its own way around things.
yeah, so it's not just like stuck in the same trap over and over. So if you look at how artificial intelligence works, and that's like a really basic description of how it works. Obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that. I mean, it's crazy to think about because when you look at computers, when it comes down to it, it's just one and zero.
Binary.
A computer is just a very long series of switches, one and zero.
Yeah.
So you take that one and zero, and you can create an artificial intelligence that runs off ones and zeros. This slowly morphs into playing the game. So if you look at the way AI works, what does it remind you a lot of? You have a whole bunch of people playing the game, and the best ones that play in the game move on to the next generation.
Reminds you kind of like a multiplayer for like just games.
Well, look at it like this. So the ones that are the best at playing the game, they move on to the next generation. Okay? And there's the random elements that you throw into the AI so that it doesn't just get stuck doing the same thing over and over again.
That also reminds me of Newton's can't think of the name of it. Natural selection.
Exactly. That's where I was going with it. It's exactly how evolution works. Because in evolution, survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
But then you also have random things thrown in. You have genetic mutations. You have acts of God. Asteroid, climate change, whatever. And then whenever that does that, it kind of prepares the next generation for the next event, and then the species progresses. So that's basically exactly genetics works pretty much exactly like AI.
Yeah,
Isn't
pretty
that,
much. Yeah,
isn't that kind of crazy to think about?
it is kind of. Yeah.
So here's the question: when you think about, are we just a product of an AI?
We don't know that. There's a bunch of sources that say that there's like a 50% chance that we're living
Simulation.
in a simulation anyway. So.
So is it possible for an AI? Can we create an AI
that knows it's an AI?
that is conscious? Yeah. Is
I
that
mean,
possible? It's just ones and zeros when it
but
comes
you
down
gotta
to
think,
it.
think how intricate the human brain is.
Okay, well, I get that, but just think: is it
That's the
possible?
reason why we're conscious.
But at the end of the day, an AI is just ones and zeros.
That's
It's just
a lot of
it's
ones
just
and zeros.
on and off.
You're talking like more than trillions.
Right. It is more than trillions, but at the end of the day, it's just ones and zeros. It's literally just a
If we're going off that, then I mean maybe because it may just be ones and zeros, and it could work because all those random challenges you give it, I imagine each different AI is going to encounter different random challenges, just like people do.
right, right.
But at the same time,
But when does that AI become conscious?
does an AI becoming conscious include it having emotion?
Well, it
And
could learn.
emotions?
It could learn to mimic emotion. But how do you know if it's actually experiencing it?
Well, for example, sadness, happiness,
Well,
anger.
how do you know if it's actually experiencing it though? How do you know it's not just a code inside the AI?
I guess it would need facial features and other stuff. So that's weird.
Well, even if it had
facial
features,
how do you know, like, if you were looking at someone's brain scans,
like,
how would you know if they're angry, sad, happy? I guess some chemical in their brain goes up or down.
well, I could look at you and say I'm sad, and I have a real sad face, but I'm not actually sad.
But take that away. Let's take a look at. Let's say you were looking at my brain waves. The only way to tell if I would be happy, sad, or whichever would be chemical imbalances in my brain. One chemical goes up when I'm, when you're happy. Typically, your brain has higher levels of dopamine.
So the AI in your brain knows that certain circumstances you need to be sad, and you need to be happy, or you need to be alert, and so it feeds you those chemicals to make you feel that way.
Maybe.
So are you conscious then?
If something is making you feel that way, then no.
If you're not conscious, do you have free will? Because if we work,
I feel like that's a question that's been asked for 100
if
years.
because AIs, they definitely don't have free will because they're all subject to their code.
Yeah, they turn off when we tell them.
They're all ones and zeros when it comes down to it.
We don't turn off when someone tells us to. No.
Maybe the right person hasn't told us to turn off. Has our artificial intelligence creators told us to turn off?
I mean, that's assuming that that's.
Why does an AI need to be able to turn off? I mean, they make movies about it all the time. The AI that doesn't shut off.
Yeah, but they're slightly unrealistic about it.
They're very unrealistic, but
AI is just technology and electricity running through something, and that something's going to deteriorate eventually. Unlike humans, whose something can.
What happens if we run out of food?
We die.
What's the difference between that and electricity? I mean, basically, our bodies are just little electric generators that runs off of carbon.
The difference is if you sever a tendon in your leg, your body's going to heal it. If you sever a wire in an AI, it's not going to heal it.
Okay, so imagine that AI controls tiny little robots. They can repair things.
Okay.
So, like our immune system and our blood cells.
You've been watching too much Bloodshot, my friend.
Bloodshot. I don't know what that is.
That Marvel character with Vin Diesel?
I don't think that's a Marvel character.
Purely about him waking up and having little robots inside of him and they heal him.
I haven't watched that.
Oh wow.
Well, anyway, no, I just this is like something my brain was stuck on the other day, and I was like, my brain gets stuck on stuff all the time, dude. It's awful. I can't sleep. But, yeah. So that's just the thought that's been in my head. I don't know. I mean, if somebody's listening to this, probably nobody, but if somebody does someday and is like, well, here's an interesting theory that will let you sleep at night, I'm down. I want to hear it. You know? I don't know. Don't know.
I didn't know, and I don't think we will know until we know.
I want to have free will. I don't think I could live without free will.
I mean, just ask some of the people that didn't have it.
Who doesn't have free will?
I mean, think about all the people that are slaves.
They have free will.
I don't consider that to be very free willish, man. I mean, come on. Some of those people don't even have the option to like kill themselves if they want to because they're like in chains, literally, and they're forced to work.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean they don't have free will. It's a completely different thing. They're bound. So yeah, you're right. They can't. They literally can't do anything. But you can't. You can't keep them from thinking stuff.
You can.
Well, with a lobotomy, maybe.
No, you can. I guarantee you, I could keep your mind off of thinking stuff if I like use Chinese water torture or like
no.
hit your knee with a hammer every 5 seconds.
Well, it's like 1984,
if
man.
I redirected your brain to something else more urgent.
Have you read 1984? Okay.
Never read 19. I don't know what it's about. I've never heard of it.
You need to read 1984. It's a classic. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it.
Yeah, I never have.
Okay, you need to read it.
Okay.
And then tell me what you think about it.
Okay.
All right. Anyways, so we got about 20 minutes left. Anything you want to talk about? I got a story.
Other than that, I just no. Until I get some stuff read and stuff like that.
Okay.
And let's have questions about what you say.
Oh yeah.
The majority of this podcast. But.
Okay, so I'm gonna experience something brand new next week. Something I'm a little scared about, and it could detriment my health. It very well could.
What?
But when it comes down to it, I really love the Benjamins. So I signed up to do a clinical study.
Oh.
Yeah. I signed up a long time ago, not even thinking about it, but then they called me back yesterday. I was like, I didn't even remember doing it. They're like, yeah, so we have all your information, we just need to confirm stuff. And dude, I get paid like over $2,000 for like 5 days.
For what?
I got it. Well, tomorrow I'm going in and they're doing a screening.
For?
Me. Like they're gonna, I don't know. I think they're gonna do a blood test. Because I'm not supposed to eat like 8 hours before.
Okay.
So I think they're gonna do a blood test. They didn't really tell me. And then next week, starting on like Tuesday, I have to go in and I have to like live in their facility for like 5 days.
What?
Yeah.
You're gonna live in their where's this facility at?
It's in Overland Park.
You're gonna live in their facility for 5 days.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do on this?
I'm testing blood pressure medication, I guess. So that's like aspirin. I keep telling myself, but
right. Tell me that. Same thing when your blood pressure is just bouncing off the walls.
Hey, you know what? I really care about other people, and I just want them to be healthy.
You just said you cared about the Benjamins.
You know, that was a contributing factor. Well, when she called me, I was like, I was like, "Are you still interested?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess." And then I'm like, "What's the time commitment?" And they're like, "Oh, it's 5 days." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." And then she's like, I don't remember how much. It was like over $2,000. She's like, "It's $3,000." It's 3,000. I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'm good. I'll do that."
All right, well.
And I can, and I mean, I can't leave the facility.
So what if you want like DoorDash or something?
I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna work. I don't know if they're gonna like.
Are they gonna feed you, or are they
I
just gonna starve you for
I
5 days?
assume they're gonna feed me. If I were to guess, I'm probably not allowed to eat anything they don't give me.
That's sketchy. But okay.
Well, they probably got to run tests and stuff, so they got to control everything.
So what are you gonna do for 5 days? Just like walk
Uh,
around, bang your head against a wall?
well, they said I could bring my laptop or whatever, so I'll probably
Your phone.
edit stuff. You know. Yeah, my phone.
Cool.
Anyways,
So I'm basically gonna have no contact with you for like 4 days.
oh no, I'll have my phone.
Because I won't though.
Oh yeah,
You'll be somewhere in Overland Park in some weird test chamber.
that's fine. Oh, well, what we'll do is we're probably gonna hike this weekend, right?
This coming weekend?
Yeah.
Depends on the weather. It's supposed to be icy and cold.
We need to try to get a hike in. That way we can record a podcast like on Monday, and then that way I can edit it while I'm there. I can do all the editing. So.
It just depends on what the weather's gonna be like.
All right. Could go south. Go south. Go to Arkansas.
Uh,
Be a pretty good drive if we're just doing a day, but
it just depends. I mean, hell, if it's gonna be 15, 20 degrees all day long, dude, that would freaking suck.
yeah. Well, if we're not spending the night, like if we were prepared for it, it wouldn't be that bad. Because then we just bundle up and keep moving.
I don't know. We'll think about it.
Anyways, anything else?
No, not that I can think of. It's pretty good.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Follow us on YouTube
And Instagram.
and Instagram and
hopefully those are the only two platforms that we.
and whatever platform you like to listen to podcasts on.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean you're probably already listening to it, I guess, unless you're listening on YouTube.
I guess they could follow us on Spotify, like I did.
On Spotify or on iTunes or Castbox or.
Oh, it's on all of that.
It's on like 8 different platforms.
You can subscribe to us on YouTube too.
Yeah, do YouTube. We're going to do extra stuff. We're not just going to be like editing parts of the podcast and putting it on there. We're going to do more than that.
Good.
Especially as the summer comes around.
God, I can't wait for warm weather.
Yeah.
It's gonna make this whole idea so much better.
Right. I think more people will care because nobody's like hiking right now. So.
Yeah. I don't expect
very few people.
I don't expect any of these videos to be watched or heard until it starts to become springtime.
Yeah. Yeah. Far from a finished product. Anyhow. Thanks.
Yeah. I enjoy it. So.
Yeah. All right. Peace out.